Okay, y'all. I know everybody's coming in. I know it's like hilarious. Funny story. I am so the person that I married somebody who is like 15 minutes early everywhere. Anybody married have somebody like that? Or you might be like that. And I'm just kind of like on time. Like I kind of like to be on time. But like something like this, I'd be like, oh, it starts at 9:30. I'll get there about 9:45. But I started subbing I know, teacher joy. I started subbing at my oldest daughter's Christian school, and I had to teach Monday and Tuesday. Y'all, like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not an early morning person. I had to get up at 5:45. I had to actually wash, shower. Like I shower all the time, but I had to like wash, blow dry my hair. Like I had to be like teacher joy. So I like left at like 6:45, and it was hilarious because the night before I looked at Todd. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna have all the lunches made. Everything will be ready. But you're gonna have to make sure John William is up and Sophie Kate is up because I'm working. He's like, the words I never have heard come out of your mouth. And I was like pulling in the Mount Perrin parking lot at like 7:10. I was really on time. And y'all, I was teacher joy. It's really fun. Does anybody else sub at your kid's school? It's like so fun. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I have to sub again Monday and Tuesday PE for elementary kids. I mean, I just want to do it every now and then. Like they're starting to call me a lot, and I'm like, no, wait, too much, too soon. If y'all seen The Grinch, too much, too soon. It's too much, too soon. But I was like, okay, elementary, because I had high school this past week. I subbed Spanish. Yes, I will never, Beth and John, as you know me well, I will never sub math. You would not want me in your math class. But I did sub Spanish. I had to give them a test. So it was fun. It was really fun. So I was really on time. So just talking about the being on time. So anyway, today I'm really excited. I know so many of you are upset about not having a podcast from last week. How many of you were not here last week? Oh, now see? Y'all, has your friend told you about it? Have you heard how amazing Mallory was? She does not want us to podcast because if you were here, it was so raw and so real about her marriage and what's gone on in her marriage. And there's a lot of the details that their children don't even know. So she just did not want us to podcast. So I am sorry. I mean, if you were here, you can look at your friend that wasn't and say, I'm sorry you missed. Because it was really, really amazing. But I'll have her back. Mallory is a friend of Moms with Swords. We did upload, if you saw us on social media, our table from the table event at Riverstone, our Moms with Swords table event. I'm not sweating. Stephen Randall Hambrick, pastors at Vintage 242, and Jeremy and Tiffany Abernathy. Tiffany is a part of Moms with Swords, our prayer team leader, and her husband is a pastor as well. It was an incredible night about marriage. So if you missed last week, listen to that one because it was just as powerful and good. So we do have that one, just unfortunately will not have Mallory. So sorry, bummed about that for you guys as well. So, all right, I know everybody's rolling in, but we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and call up my friends. This is our last week on marriage. As you know, we've spent 2 weeks. Y'all, after fall break, there's only 4 weeks of Moms with Swords left. I mean, that's like crazy. Now, we will have our Christmas party, but that's crazy. So this is our last week on marriage. And then when y'all get back from fall break, I'm really excited. I started writing it yesterday. I will be teaching on how we bestow and give into our kids. And that was really hard for me as I was sitting yesterday trying to think, like, what would I tell moms I believe is the most important thing they can give their kids? Like, y'all know as mom, how do you answer that question? But I do feel the Holy Spirit gave me 3 things, and it's gonna be a really powerful word, I believe. So that will be after fall break, and then we'll spend 2 weeks on kids, and then we'll end spending 2 weeks on how we bestow into others, which that one has already got me slain, because if you know me, I'm gotten older, and I don't like a lot of people. So to give into others, I'm like, wow, just start with loving them. Love, Joy, love. So I'm gonna get my toes stepped on all about those last 2 weeks. So, and then we'll be done until the spring. So, but this morning I'm so incredibly excited. I want you to welcome to the stage Troy and Janice Gambrell. And Laura and Matt Godfrey. We had Laura last session. She brought her better half this week, this session. And near and dear to my heart, Beth and John Bennett. So we're going to all come up here and try to, has this the most sanctuaries ever had up on stage, Troy? No, probably not. Yeah, maybe. Are we commissioning? Okay, let me give Beth and John, I'm going to give y'all this one. I'm going to turn it on. So the mics are going to be on, so y'all don't say anything. Okay. And Laura and Matt, we're going to share. So I'm playing Oprah today. Okay, can y'all, this is going to be, can y'all see okay? Is that okay? Katia, did you bring some of your mamas? Oh my gosh, we have to wait, what? Okay, Katia, stand up. This is our Young Lives, Katia. And these are some of her mamas. She's the Young Lives. Oh, y'all, we need to honor you, mamas. Stand up. Stand up. We need to honor y'all. Welcome to Moms with Swords. We're so glad you're here. Oh my gosh. Listen, go back there and get yourself a bracelet. Just tell Andrea, Miss Joy said you could have a bracelet. At the end. No, at the end. Sorry, Andrea. We're going to give them a bracelet. And the one that's coming too, okay? Andrea. So excited to have y'all. Okay, I'm going to go let y'all introduce yourselves. We'll start, Troy, you and Janice. We'll start with you, and we'll just kind of work. Now, if you don't brag enough on yourself, I'm going to have to intervene because, I'm all about, I don't want to wait till your funeral to tell y'all how much I love you and appreciate you. So say who you are, what you do, just some important stuff, fun stuff.
Awesome. Hello.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, my name's Troy Gambrell. It's my wife, Janice. And I get the privilege of leading our middle school, high school students here at Sanctuary.
Woo!
And I love it. We've been married for 9.5 years. Did you know that? Okay. For 9.5 years, we have 2 girls. Taylor is 5, about to be 6. Allie is 3, about to be 4. Completely outnumbered. It feels kind of like this. Did I miss anything? Joy, was there anything?
Well, Janice and Troy are just incredible. They are the youth pastors here. Janice happens to be y'all know my oldest, Sydney, if you don't know, my oldest. Janice has been her mentor for about 4 years. And so, y'all, if you don't have somebody for your kids, like that, again, something my mentor instilled in me early on, to have another voice for your kids, y'all, I cannot even tell you what this woman has imparted into my daughter. So if your kids are getting older, start looking for that that voice that can speak into your babies, because it is a powerful force. And she has just, again, imparted stuff into my baby that I could not do. God has supplemented me with Janice. So I just love them. And y'all, Troy is an incredible wood maker. If you need a table, truly, him and Rebecca, have a ministry, literally.
Creations.
So made new creations. Y'all.
This is their shameless plug. This is really why we did this. Tell all these ladies about your woodwork.
Y'all, I'm not even kidding. Troy can make a table, get a picture of a Pottery Barn table you want. This man can he's incredible. The little boxes for your flowers beside your front door, those boxes, Troy, that are at front gate for $400.
Yeah.
Troy can make them. So if you need a table, Troy is the guy. Okay, all right. Love Janice and Troy. So now, Matt and Laura, talk about yourselves.
Do you want me to introduce us?
Matt.
You empower me. Thank you so much. I'm Laura Godfrey. This is Mr. Laura Godfrey.
I'm Mr. Laura Godfrey. I'm Matt.
We have been married for 11 years. We have 3 little girls. They just turned 7, just turned 5, and just turned 1.
Within 3 weeks of each other.
Yes.
Oh
yes. Wow. So
They've already got their weddings planned out
yes,
within 3 weeks of each other.
it's going to be a good time. No, he'll be rocking in the corner somewhere. But in the field
You know.
But yeah, we are high school sweethearts. We started dating when we were like practically infants, and dated all through college, and then got married, and we grew up around in this area, still live in this area. We're currently building a house in Kennesaw, living with our in-laws. So that's
Yes,
a blast.
that'll be fun. 4 months today, and it's my parents.
It's our time
Who's
of
counting?
sanctification.
It's like living in my high school, my room from high school has not been touched in 15 years. It's like, Laura, welcome to the shrine.
I'm living in his glory days. So there's no room for my shoes or clothes or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Football, pictures,
Yes.
everything.
It's great. It's great. But I have a blog that I do when my kids are in school and I have time. And Matt is a State Farm agent over in, is it Ackworth?
Kennesaw, Ackworth.
Kennesaw Ackworth area. So yeah, that's us. Anything
There we
you
go.
And Matt's dad is the executive pastor at Burnt Hickory Baptist right down the street. Some of you, because some of you go to Burnt Hickory. So yeah, and you guys do, everybody in this room follows Laura. We all, look, these shoes are because of Laura Godfrey. But I can
Restocked
guarantee
this
you,
morning, actually.
they were restocked this morning. Go back and get some. I can guarantee you these jeans are not extra small. As we all know, Laura, I'm wearing an extra small. I needed to have an extra small. We love you.
I have never said I need an extra,
She really
extra
hasn't.
small.
We
Thank
do love
very
you.
much.
We love you. I just have envy a little bit. 47-year-old body mama envy. It's okay. Moving on. All right. John and Beth.
Yeah, and we want to say, first of all, how much we love Joy. You know, we met her back in 1995 when I was on staff at Mount Perrin, and she has been like a little sister to us, and I could not be more proud of you for all that you're doing here. I am so proud of you, and you let's just cry together. Let's have a moment together, yeah. We love Joy very much, and it's an honor to be here. Like Joy said, I'm John, this is Beth. We've been married almost a little over 31 years now. We've got 3 kids, 2 of which are married. Our oldest, Christy, is married to Rob. Our son, Michael, is married to Audrey. And then we have our last one who is on the payroll, but only for another 8 months.
Who's counting?
Getting ready to graduate from the University of Georgia. She said, Dad, how long do I got? I said, you can go to school as long as you want. The money's cut off after 4 years. That's how it works around here. And so the big news for us, though, as of April 2nd, 2020, we're going to be grandparents. Yeah, we are fired up about that. My wife is joining the hot grandmother club, that's for sure. I'm just telling you, Grandma never looked so good. But, you know, it was kind of an interesting thing because my oldest has been married 5 years and my son's been married 4 years. And I was starting to get to the point where I was drawing pictures. Here's how you make a grandchild, all right? This is what it looks like. This is what happens. And finally, we got the big announcement a few weeks ago, so we couldn't be more happy about that.
Yeah, no, super excited, super excited. So great to be here. You know, you were talking how you're living with your in-laws. Well, our oldest, Christy and Rob, are actually living with us right now. So we are kind of from a different perspective looking at
I
this.
feel more sorry for them than I do for us.
Well, actually, they don't have children yet, so
Well, that
it's
does
really,
make a difference.
Yeah.
actually, it's really been good. You know, it really has. We see this as just a time of investment in their lives, and we're getting to know each other in great ways. And so we're their people, they're our people, and it's just been really fun.
Well, what's been fun about it, though, is that they both have virtual jobs. We both have virtual jobs. So it's like a co-working space during the day. They're locked in their bedrooms, you know. There's all kinds of video calls going on, hogging the internet signal. It's actually kind of a hoot, you know.
It's been fun. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going to have good stories to tell.
Yep.
And what you guys, anybody follows UGA football? You like UGA? Their son was Michael Bennett, wide receiver at Georgia. So I can't believe you didn't say that. That's like a big deal, like huge deal.
Well,
like,
I think the grandbaby's a bigger deal right now.
I know that is true. That they did on their reveal. They had like a little UGA, like little onesie because it's Michael that's having it. So, but yeah, that's their son, and they have invested in mine and Todd's lives forever. I've already like cried in the green room, so I won't go there again. But they are incredible. Anything in me, I always say, is because of the impartation of Beth, like imparting, intentional, depositing, bestowing. Like that is who these people have been to me personally and Todd. I mean, truly. If you ask me for advice, you can probably bet it's come from her. It's something she has taught me, something she has told me. It's why it's so important to get with some people that are ahead of you. Like, run after those people. Don't be in competition with those people. Don't be intimidated by those people. Find some women that are ahead in Christ so you can like run to the prize with them. Because you got a lot of people following you, but are you following after somebody wise? A wise woman follows a wise woman. Just always remember that. Okay, so here we are, the fourth week of Bestow. And just to recap the definition of bestow, a word that probably some of us have not, we always say these sessions, the Lord names some of these words, they're not in our Christian language a lot, but it is to present as a gift or an honor, to give, which is why we're like giving in our marriages, to honor, to labor, to feed, and to deposit. So I want us to spend a few minutes, got some questions here. I want y'all to spend a few minutes, and y'all just kind of jump in. Let's talk about the little years. So Troy and Janice and Matt and Laura are there. A lot of you are there. And John and Beth have not been there for a while, which is, y'all need to be taking notes. But let's talk about these little years. How are these years hard to give into each other? Like, how are these, maybe John and Beth, we'll wait for y'all to the end, like we'll let them, and then y'all just kind of glean us some wisdom. But how are these years hard to invest in one another and to honor one another with these little babies running around? Whoever wants to go first, just jump in.
31 years of marriage. I just want to hear from y'all. Let's get through this, and then we can hear from them. What makes it hard? I feel like it's been very challenging for us. And I'll give you kind of the dad perspective, if I can do that, and maybe even the working mom perspective. This is kind of how I feel a lot of times. As a dad who I really do want to intentionally invest in both my two younger girls, but also my wife. I really do desire that. And I think most dads desire that too. I just think a lot of times we get it very wrong. I think that is the desire of most dads. Obviously, there's some cases where that's probably not true. But I think most dads desire to be intentional and invest and bestow in their kids. And so because that's what I desire, but also because I know that I have a role here at the church where I'm investing in students, and a lot of it is very relational. I find it, a lot of times I find it very hard because I feel like my day sometimes really starts, if my kids are my number one ministry, then what I do here is important, but when I leave here, what I do is incredibly important. And so a lot of times I feel like I've got to come here and be youth pastor Troy, and then when I leave, that's the important part. But a lot of times I'm so tired from here and from relationships here that I totally miss or mess up when I go to invest and bestow in my girls and my wife. And I think that's probably, I'm going to guess that's probably true for a lot of husbands that that can be tough to go home and enter back into that world. I heard an incredible message from Matt Chandler, one of my favorite pastors and teachers, and he was talking to husbands, and he said, husbands, when you leave work, you pull into your driveway, you stop, you take a moment, you pray to the God who gives strength and abundance that he would grant it to you as you re-enter with your family. And he said, and after you pray, you walk into the door and you pour everything that you have into your kids, and you get on the ground and you roll around with them and you wrestle them from the strength that you have that God's given you, not from what you can muster up, but from what God's given you. And then when you put your kids to bed, you come down and you sit on the couch and you spend some time with your beloved. And that is easier said than done, because once, I know for me, once I roll around with the girls and then I sit down, I so badly want me time. And that's what makes it so challenging. That's what makes it so challenging for me. And please hear me. I mess this up often. I mean, so often I mess this up. And a lot of times I get it very right with my girls when I get home, that I just can't wait to tackle them. And then I, if I'm honest, I mess it up with Janice quite often. And so I think that can be the hard piece. And I think a lot of times, one more thing, and then you can stop hearing from me, but I think a lot of times what we do is we compartmentalize the things in our life and in our relationship and the tasks that we have to do, the schedule that is at hand. Like I'll go to work and Janice will be with our youngest, and then I get home, and the thought sometimes is, you take the girls, I'm going to do what I need to do, and then it's switched. You cook dinner, I'll cook dinner. You take the girls to bed, and so I think what makes it tough is, I don't know if y'all remember this with your spouse, but before kids, I had a lot of free time, like just to invest in my wife. Like, I hate to take you back to that place because it's very dreamy. But I remember, like, I'd get home from work and we'd have 7 hours together, 7 hours, and it was amazing where we could just talk and we could actually have uninterrupted conversations, and I actually had energy left to invest in her. And I think a lot of times what we do is we compartmentalize these areas to where you do one thing, I'll do another thing. You take care of this, I'll take care of this. And please hear me, sometimes that's necessary if you got 4 kids or lots of kids. If you got lots of kids, I don't even know how you do it sometimes. And so, but I think it's kind of finding that time to share those times together and understand the importance of doing some of those things together. Like not letting your husband come in and then take the kids, but both of you sitting down, and my daughter loves to play Guess Who or Uno, and both of us sitting down, and we're both going to sit down and play with them, not you take them now and me take them now. And so finding time to do that together, and I'll stop there.
I love that.
And I would just add to, I think that one of the things that I found, because it's almost like with having kids, like you don't have any kids, and like we were thinking back the other day, I have a sister who has no kids, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And I want to be like, why are you tired? How are you tired? But it's almost like you get, like, as you start to parent and you go from having no kids to then having one, it's like a muscle that just gets a little bit stronger. So when we look at somebody that has 5 kids and we're like, they have 5 kid muscles. I barely have 3 kid muscles, and so I'm like, I don't know how they do that, but they've gotten these muscles that have kind of gotten more and more used to that. So that's kind of why that is that way. But I remember explaining to Matt one time, I feel sometimes like, and again, for some of you, I don't know how many of you like work from home or work outside of the home or whatever, but when I started working more, I felt like I had all of these cups on a table, and at the start of every morning, it was like me standing in front of this table and pouring as much of myself into each of these cups as I possibly could. And it was like, okay, I gotta pour into, this daughter, and then this daughter, and I gotta make sure I'm pouring into Matt, and then I gotta do over here, and then I gotta come back over here, and oh, this one looks a little empty, I gotta pour into that. And so at the end of the day, when he would come home, sometimes I felt like I looked at him, I'm like, tag, you're it, like, I'm out, I'm going to get my nails painted, dude, like, I have nothing left to give, like nothing left to give. And I realized for me personally, and he may have a little bit of a different perspective coming from the dad-husband role, but what I found that really helped me a lot to get out of this headspace of like, well, I've given everything that I have all day, I have nothing left to give, is I had to change the way that I thought about my role as a mom. And one very, very small thing that I started doing, instead of saying things like, I have to get up and make breakfast, I have to pack lunches, I have to pick up my girls, I started saying, I get to wake up and make breakfast. I get to take my girls to lunch. And there was or take them to school. There was a very pivotal moment that I had when I was listening to Levi Lesko, who's a pastor that we love listening to up in Montana, he had a guy come and speak, and he was the founder of Charity Water. And he talked about these women that would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they would walk 7 hours to get water for their family, to get dirty water for their family, to bring it back just so that they would have something to be hydrated. Now keep in mind, this was around the same time that I was complaining because I kind of wanted a new car. Like my car was not really what I wanted. And I was kind of a little bit complaining about the fact that I had to drive so far to take my kids to school. And it was like I heard that, and you know, God's so gentle with me because he should just be like, get up, what are you talking about? But he was so gentle in the way that he kind of said, like, you could probably use a little bit of a perspective shift, but we get to mother these babies and we get to have these sweet men that come home. But I think we have to be so careful with the way that we talk about our roles and talk about what we do and the way that we're allowing our minds to go throughout the day, because you can expend so much energy on just being negative about some of these things, and we don't have that energy to spend. We have to be so careful. We have to be guarding our thoughts, guarding our minds. The Bible says to renew your mind, to ask the Holy Spirit, renew my mind, because he can preserve our energy. He can, it's like you were saying, like you get into the driveway and you pray for supernatural strength. You're not gonna most likely die from being tired. It's not a tired competition. I read this meme one time and it was like, adulting is pretty much like adults just comparing how tired they are all the time. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Well, I'm more tired. Well, I'm this tired, you know, and when you have little babies that are waking up in the middle of the night and all this kind of stuff, you know, it can just get crazy. But I think especially in the little years, just looking at it and kind of shifting your perspective a little bit to realizing like this is such a sweet honor that we have to be doing this, and as hard as it is most days, what I've heard is that we're going to look back on these days and go, oh, that was sweet. That was sweet. Especially when they're little. It's not complicated, you know? I'm not into middle school yet with my girls, but I'm sort of hoping that maybe they'll just go into like an induced coma or something to where we'll just miss those 3 years and then they can wake up and be like mature and ready. But I don't think that's going to happen. So we're kind of like buckling down, getting ready. But these years are so simple, you know? And so, I don't know.
I think another thing too is that as little girls, y'all have been mothering since like you were born, right? So like we stumble across the scene and we're like, oh, we have a baby now. What do we do with this thing? And so then it's like one of the best things I feel like as moms and wives, you guys have to find, as bogus as it may be, find the smallest things that you can encourage your husband on. Because I feel like so many times it's quick to be like, you shouldn't do that. We haven't been with you guys all day long, and then it's like you're correcting us when we're trying to be the best dad that we can be, but we already feel like we're behind because y'all been playing baby doll. I mean, I have 3 little girls. We got 100,000 Barbies. I mean, it's like, and so
they're all naked.
They're all naked. I'm like, now, girls, we got to figure out clothes. But remember that a lot of it is like, as men, like, you know, we're teaching a study right now, Love and Respect, at our church. And
I love that book.
men, like, we desire respect, and we're coming
You
from
told me to read
a lot
that.
of times, we're coming from a workplace where we are respected. And people value our opinions and the processes that we have. And then we walk in, and it's like, you don't put it in that way. It's like, okay, you know, it's like, I don't know how to do a bottle, or I don't know how to do this. So, you know, very lovingly coach us how to do some of these things. It's like, hey, wrong side of the diaper. Like last night, I was getting the 1-year-old out of the bathtub, and I was just like, all right, throwing her, and Lara's like, no. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And I was like, just put the towel down. I was like, oh, yeah. You know.
Lay the clean baby on the dirty bathroom floor.
I'm just like, hey, let's make this thing happen, like point A to point B. And so, anyways, remember, we haven't been parenting as long as y'all. You're already ahead of us, and love us through, you know, the learning years too, when the little kids.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay, wisdom, John and Beth, little years.
Well, thank you for that. That was very well said. And
Old farts can
so
speak.
what I hear the desire for empathy from the mom towards the husbands. I hear a desire for empathy. I hear a desire for respect and understanding. And ladies, that doesn't come anywhere except from him. And it doesn't come unless you first have experienced it from him. This is where this kind of love comes from, that can flow towards our husbands. This empathy, this understanding, this compassion doesn't come anywhere but from him. And so we, 1 John 4, we love because we first had allowed him to love us. So back it up, right? It's like, okay then. I realize I am bankrupt in my ability to love my husband in the ways that these men are desiring to be loved. I don't know how to do it, right? I have a way, this is the way, to parent and to mother, and why are you not just falling in line here, all right, with the way that I think it should be done, okay? And so this humility of realizing that I am bankrupt without him loving me, and so then being honest, God, this is how I need you to love me. This is what I need, right? This is what I need. And it only comes from the secret place. And it only comes from this time. And then, of course, we'll back that up. Well, where does that time come from, Beth? You're kidding me. I've got, nursing babies, all this stuff. And I've been there. I get that. I totally get that. But it's rearranging your schedule. It's being really ruthless and changing things up. And it's being really intentional about not being on social media and this discontentment, which is I totally get too, and I've been there. I need a new car. My car isn't good. My house isn't painted. I remember the first time we moved into Alpharetta, which is the land of Disneyland over there. Who lives like people like that? You know what I mean? We were in this small group at one time. We're pastors. In essence, we're not pastoring, in a church right now. But so we're in this small group. Everybody's got $1 million plus homes. We're in the middle of this small group. They look at us as the pastors, but so when we first moved to Alpharetta, Joy was pregnant with Sydney, and I said, yeah, we were pastors at that point. Yeah, I'd love to have a shower for you. I was so embarrassed about my house because it wasn't painted and it wasn't decorated. It was a decent house, but I felt like the Lord said, you just have that shower for Sydney and for Joy, and it doesn't matter, and that was something that I really had to grow into. But now, and this was before cell phones and social media, I can't imagine now the comparison and the discontentment that can seep in because of Instagram and Insta-that and Facebook. Y'all, cut it out. You don't need that. The time that you spend watching and looking at that, spend in the secret place with God, getting loved on. All right? That, I could just go home because that is exactly all I have to say.
See, y'all know where I get it from.
Drop the mic.
Bossy. Tell them, Beth.
I don't know if I can add much. You guys just share such great stuff, but I will because I got the microphone. But I think that parenting is kind of like facing a hurricane. First band of the hurricane is those preschool years, and really it's costing you physical energy. It's just physically, you're there, you're tired all the time, they're up at night, the whole thing. Then there's a beautiful area there where it's like the eye of the hurricane, so that may be around, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, something there. They're sweet. They think their parents are the greatest things in the world. We're heroes in their eyes. We can do no wrong for the most part. They think we're great. They can pretty much take care of themselves, so physically it's not quite as tough. And then you've got the backside of the hurricane, and that's called hormones, right? Teenagers. Anybody raising teenagers right now? Yeah? Okay. Hey, there you go. I can't believe you're smiling. So anyways, it's just going through that. So I can honestly say there were so many times I complained, so many times I was tired, so many times my needs were not being met, and I complained about those years. And then somewhere in that middle of that, I heard a phrase that said, the days are long, but the years are short. Days are long, but the years are short. And now we've been empty nesters for 3 years. And I can promise you, probably not a week goes by when I start thinking about all 3 of them in my home, running around, doing all the crazy stuff they used to do, and me complaining about it, but now I'm thinking back about it, and I don't remember any of the bad stuff anymore, none of the negative stuff for the most part. I really don't remember. I only remember the great feelings that I had when they're there, and I'll start to get emotional, I'll start to tear up, because I realize those days are gone. Days were long, but the years were short, and it blew by quicker than I could even imagine. And now we're at, like I said, we've been empty nesters for 3 years. So as hard as it is to buckle down, you guys talked about this, is to really appreciate each and every day.
Do you guys, John and Beth, I really want y'all to start here because you guys, if y'all had like a a word in the dictionary that defines you, it would be intentional, because you guys are just, Beth, you just put that in my mind all these years. Intentionality, Joy, be intentional, be intentional. Share with us some of the routines that y'all allowed in your day, in your weeks, with when your kids were at home, into your busyness, to make sure you were investing into one another, honoring one another, and then we'll let the youngsters talk about some of the things that they do now. But tell us some of the ways, what y'all did in the little years that y'all were really intentional about.
Yeah, one thing John was really good about was saying, we are getting away, like a lot.
Yeah.
And, how do you get over that? I had to get over the fear of, putting my 9-month-old in the hands of someone else, right? He's like, Michael needs to, be off the tit at 9 months. I mean, no, really. He's like, I'm like, wait a minute. I want
He
to
really
nurse
said that
till
too.
He's 12 months, You're supposed to nurse till you're 12 months. No, we need to get away. And so we had people who had a home in the Bahamas that they let us use. And literally, how many times? 4 times? Yeah. So we've been there 4 times when they were little. Got away. And because we were pastoring at the time, and I totally resonate with you too, okay, so you're pouring out all the time with people, and then your day really begins. Well, we're just realizing we are limited in our emotional capacity here to pour out, and just being real about your limits, and loving to yourself again, and creating these rhythms of rest and renewal, and getting away by yourself and together. So so we would get away. I would think at least twice a year. I think at that point we were getting away. We had great parents. But they lived in Michigan. We lived here, so that was tricky. But they always wanted to come see the kids. We had a great Debbie Michelle. Joy knows Debbie Michelle, who just in a
Stepped in as a grandmama.
would come and be with our kids. And so again, it was a trust issue. And yes, it's a lot of work to get away. Moms, right? It's almost easier to stay sometimes because getting it all together and all the food and all the organization. But I just get me out of the door. And John says I became a different person when I walked out the door. And he was really happy about that. So, anyway, that was so important in our young years.
Yeah, undistracted mama meant a whole lot more loving, that's for sure. Without question. The principle for us was, you can only give what you receive, right? You can only give out what you receive. You talk about pouring out in the morning, and I think it's true for all of us, whether it's the husband or the wife, the mom or the dad, and it always starts with receiving first. Because think about it, I cannot give anything I don't have, so I have to receive first. So first and foremost, we had to work on our marriage, our together time, and so for me that meant literally working it out, pushing the envelope as the husband, saying, we've got to get away, because I realized that we needed to be undistracted by work, undistracted by our kids, so that way we could receive, so therefore we could go back and get in the game again, get in the arena again, and begin to give back out. And so I think Beth kind of summed it up. Here was the cool thing, though. Again, we had no money to be able to afford a vacation in the Bahamas in those days, none at all. And yet God provided, because he saw what he wanted to do in our marriage. So I want to encourage somebody. You say, well, man, we can't get away. We can't afford that. I get that. We couldn't afford it either, but fortunately, we had a great relationship with somebody. They said to us, hey, we'd love to let you guys stay there. So 4 times that happened. Also, when it came to babysitters, once it's great having grandma and grandpa coming over, but sometimes that didn't work out. And God provided again, ladies that came over and loved our kids. In fact, our kids to this day call her Aunt Debbie. And she was always willing to pour into them, always willing to stay with them, and would never take a dime for doing that, even though we tried to get her to take something. But the thing was, God provided even though we couldn't afford it. So hopefully that encourages somebody.
Yeah. All right, young ones, do y'all have routines? Do y'all have planned out stuff that y'all are bestowing into one another?
Yeah, Laura may talk to some of the routines that we do. I think we also have a different perspective as well. So I've been blessed with a chronic illness for the last 15 years. So I brought that into our marriage, and it's not fun when you have a chronic illness. And so when we were first early on with kids, we had an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old barely, even walking with the 18-month-old, wasn't walking. And I went into the hospital for a month. And that was back in 2016. And off and on the last 3 years, 3 major surgeries and some other things like that. And so it puts a big stress on your marriage. And so, yeah, I would love to go on these bigger trips. That would be a dream for me too. But one thing that we even found out is that we've got to celebrate the little things. And so like the first thing that we did when I got out of the hospital, we looked for the first thing we could celebrate as a family, and we celebrated Rowan's half birthday. I mean, and it was as simple as that, like cupcakes, and you picked out wherever you wanted to go eat. And they still are holding us to it now. But it's like where, if you look in Scripture, like you always felt like the Jews were having parties all the time, right? It's because I think that God wants us to celebrate more than we actually do. And we're always wanting to go to the next step and the next step and the next. Sometimes we just got to sit there and say, hey, guess what? We're going to celebrate, and it may be as simple as, and so we built into Friday Family Fun Night. And so for us as the kids, as a foundational night of the week, we get Moe's, we watch Wheel of Fortune, and then we watch a movie. And it's like,
Making us sound so cool right now.
I know. But I'm telling you, if we cross our girls and say, hey, we're going to move it to Saturday, it's like mutiny is about to happen in the house. And it's like, and so it's been very cool to see a cornerstone being built there. And seeing that we value our kids, but in the same light, like we have to do that with one another. And even if we can't get out on a date night throughout the week, we may do a date lunch while the girls are at school, or we may do something like on a Sunday night where we put the girls down and we go get something to eat real fast while we don't leave them asleep and we go out on a date, but like we go out, I'll bring something back and we have like a date inside, but it's a time for reset and we get on the same page for the beginning of a week.
Well, and you use that word intentional. And I think that regardless of the season you're in, and one of the things that y'all said that I thought was so good is that you didn't wait for someone to come to you and go, you guys should probably get away. Maybe you guys should go on a date night. Like, nobody really does that. And so it sounds kind of selfish to be like, no, you got to go take that. But you do. And ladies, if your husband is not the kind of guy that really, it's probably not out of like being malicious or ugly, but he may just not be a planner. Like one of the things that we found out is I was kind of sitting there waiting for Matt to plan these like romantic getaways, and he's like, I didn't know that I'm the planner in our family. And so if I were to plan something and come to him and be like, do you think this is a fun idea? He's like, yes, let's do it. But I kind of had to, first of all, communicate to him that like, I would love for you to plan this. And he's like, okay, yes, I can do it. And again, it's like a muscle. Like he started planning things, and then, he could plan a date night, and then he's really good at planning date nights. But then it's also like, well, let's plan like a weekend getaway, or maybe we can do like a whole week, But for a lot of us, like in the seasons that we're in, like I still have a nursing baby, and so we're like counting down the days until we're done with the nursing baby. No offense to the nursing baby, but like, that ship has sailed. Like we're getting to like the finish line of that, and so I feel like we'll have a lot more freedom and flexibility, but we're not gonna wait until then before we start taking time for each other. We've got to figure out ways to work in, and like Matt said, small little things that we can celebrate as a family, as just the two of us, ways to keep. Also, if the only time that you're ever spending with your husband is sitting down and talking about really heavy stuff, you've got to work in like light and fun. Like think about when you were dating and you guys just like laughed until your bellies hurt. Like that kind of stuff is what keeps things, life is heavy enough as it is, but keeping things like really, really silly and fun and just keeping things light when you're together, try to do your best to work that kind of stuff into. And I think that's why, a week-long vacation sounds amazing, but honestly, just like a date night sounds like a vacation to me right now. So like I would take that all day long, but we're working toward that for sure.
Right,
We're not gonna let that get away. But
Anybody have a house in the Bahamas?
It takes effort.
And I think we also need to realize, like we've been talking about, it's like we are living in the good old days right now. We have the opportunity to speak life into the life that we're in, and even in the hardest times that we had with our health, because it wasn't just me, it was the front of everybody in the household. And we clung to Psalm 126. It says, restore our fortunes, Lord.
Amen.
And so like we would look at each other, and there were days where we like, this day took us. But then the days that we got to celebrate and say, hey, you know what? Today was one of those restore our fortune days.
Amen.
Thank you, Lord, for that. And so just to be grateful for where you're at and breathing that life into your life, because we also realized that what we started to look for, it became true. And so if we were looking for negative things to happen in one another, we normally found them. And so it's like changing our perspective to see, all right, let's find the good. Philippians 4:8, like let's rock that. So
And it's like one thing to just piggyback on that. It's that verse talks about streams in the desert. Like, streams are not really supposed to be in the desert, right? But that is something that only God can do. And so even if you feel like in your marriage or in your family you are in a desert, God still provides streams in the desert. And sometimes you just have to be sure that your eyes are open, looking for those ways that he's providing for you, and be sure that you're praying for specific ways, for if you need a babysitter, if you need, you know, some extra money to be able to go on a date. It doesn't even have to be expensive. Just asking him to see that, because he sees those things and he knows that those are things that you need.
Amen.
I think for us, it's not necessarily a routine that we have, but it's more of a way of life, and that's just kind of lack of technology for us. So it's funny because, like we're saying, like he's a youth pastor, and we do that together. And so to be a youth pastor who's not on social media, you're like a unicorn. Like we get Slack all the time. Like you're not, you know, the students rag us all the time. You're not on this. You're not on that. You know, we get sometimes you hear like, well, how can you be relevant? And I don't know. There's something in my spirit that kind of bucks to that, because I truly believe like at the end of the day, what our students need is to know that we love them, we care about them, we know their name, we know what's going on in their life. And yes, we may be able to like rattle off like the latest app, but at the end of the day, like, is that really caring for their souls? And so when people say that, and there is an element, like when Jesus teaches the parable, like how he taught, like he knew what was going on around him. He was very current, he was very aware. And so I think we can do that, but still not be on social media. Does that make sense? Like I think as long as we're learning and we're aware, like he just went on a recent seminar about technology usage and what it's going. So I think as long as we're informed and we're knowledgeable so that we know where they're at, sure. But does that mean we have to be on it ourselves? No. And my prayer, honestly, you guys, for that has been that the students will see that as an example.
Yeah.
More, like as a challenge more. Because I can't imagine having that. Like, you know, you have those few hours or those few minutes. And so for that to be another thing to pull, it's not Satan, it's not the evil one, social media, all that. God has used that in incredible ways for incredible purposes. And so I believe that firmly, but I do believe it's just one more thing that just pulls our attention from the other person. And so that's kind of how we've managed to like still stay somewhat connected, is that the lack of technology usage when we do have time together. Like when we go out, our phones aren't on the table. Like, you know, when he gets home, we're playing with the girls, like our phones aren't out. Like that's just not a part of our, you know. And if he does get on it for like a second, the girl's like, put the phone away, Daddy, put the phone away. And I'm like, yes. Like, you know, because they just know that's built into their makeup to kind of know that we just don't sit and look on that when we're all together and we're enjoying each other. So yeah.
Quick question. Can I get the number for that family with the Bahamas house? That sounds great. We'll talk afterward. Quick confession. We're terrible with routines. We're terrible. We always had people say, you need to schedule a weekly date night. And it's like, we're like, well, we don't have money, you know. We don't have energy, we don't have time. Like we run through the excuses, and all those are typically true, but there's still excuses. And so we, if we're honest, date night, we're terrible with date night. We kind of get to the point where we go, we need this. Like that's how we are working through this right now. But I think there's something bigger at play here, what Janice was talking about. I think for most of us, I'm guessing, maybe you can raise your hand if this has been true, where you put your kids down and you come downstairs and husband turns on football or something like that, and because he's watching football, you pull out phone, and 3 or 4 hours later, you go, I'm going to bed. You know, somebody says, I'm going to bed. And it just, where did it go? You had 3 or 4 hours, and where did it go? And so I think I think because I think that time is way more important than a date night. I think the intentionality there is way more important than a date night. And so, yeah, the technology thing, we're guilty of it too. Like she'll be texting her girlfriends, and I'll be like, all right, well, I'm going to get on the computer and, you know, buy something off Amazon or something like that, or, you know, check the football scores. That's what I meant. So, and so
Fantasy.
So then time just flies by. And if you don't have like time or resources or money or anything like that to do a date night, maybe there's a night of the week where all you have to do is say there's a box, put cell phones, computers, TV remote in that box, and go sit on the patio. I mean, most people have a patio. You go sit on the patio. You could play Uno we keep it light like that, like that too, or Princess Candyland or something like that, And so it just doesn't have to be this date night routine. Like I think we've even felt guilt and shame because we're not having a weekly date night. Like we're a terrible couple. Like we need to be doing this. We're not connected, and all it really takes is just removing distractions for a specific amount of time in order to have some good time together. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that one of the biggest routines that we've stepped into.
And that, for me and Todd, that was why I was kind of a routine. I love routine anyway, and I was a Nazi for my kids to be on a schedule. Again, if your kids aren't on schedule, there's no judgment here. I'm just saying for us. Because at 7:30, I felt like we had a date night every night because my kids, they went to bed by 8 o'clock. Hallelujah. And they slept till 8 o'clock the next morning. So for Todd and I, it was important for me, again, another thing of Beth, to get them on that schedule so that he didn't come home and 4 more hours they were up. Again, every now and then if they were sick or something, and again, no judgment if your kids aren't on schedule. This is just us. I felt like we had time every night together, and it was before cell phones. This was when Sydney and Sophie Kate were babies. There was no cell phone, so it really was us being able to eat and talk and, and now, we're guilty as we were all talking. I'm like on my phone, Todd's on his fantasy football league that he has 3. I'm a fantasy football widow, so we have to be intentional. So, but just that, mamas, it's okay to let them cry in their beds. It's okay. And you and your man to have, some Perrier and cheese tray and turn the monitor off. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Watch The Bachelor.
Yeah. No. It would be Hallmark Channel for us. Yeah. Hallmark.
Oh,
I know. Okay, so moms are asking, this is, again, survey after survey, statistics. Mamas are asking how. That is a big question that we're hearing here at Moms with Swords. I know other women's ministries are hearing how. How do I give to my spouse? How do I give to my kids? And I think y'all have all touched on this in a beautiful way. Time is the big thing, right? And being intentional with that time. Do y'all have any of those how questions that you guys have asked? Like Laura, you and Matt both are working. Like Troy, Janice, you're a stay-home mom. He works, but Beth, you didn't work in a lot of the years when your babies were little. So Laura and Matt, maybe for y'all, how are you guys, giving? What are some of those questions you have asked? Working, how do I do this? I don't have that time. Give us some insight or revelation that you guys have gleaned in some of the answers. Maybe y'all have asked the how questions and the Lord has given you some revelation into the answer. So maybe start with Laura and Matt and then work our way around to those how.
I think, from a man's perspective, one thing that I saw early on with Reese, she's our oldest, is that, I'd go to work and I'd come home and, I didn't know anything, but Laura was wearing the running outfit that she had on when I left for the morning.
Or my pajamas.
Or her pajamas. And so I don't know at what point in time, but you said, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a conscious effort, and I'm going to, at some point in this day, I'm going to get myself ready and get going. And when I'd come home, I'd be like, oh, hello. It's like, how you doing? And it's such a simple thing, but I didn't know how much it impacted me until I saw from one child to the next, and I said, oh, wow, my wife is still my wife. She's not just a mom. And so I think that from, your husband may have never told y'all, like, hey, I enjoy it when you put makeup on or when you bathe. But it's important. I mean, hey, we thought y'all were hot when we were dating, and then it's like you turn into a mom, and it's like, well, I am married to a mom now, and now I'm married to a mom, and then it's like, and it's weird because we again in our just fragmented minds up here as men, we're in the work world, right? And all the other women that we're working with in the office, they may have put themselves together, and so you have to, I mean. First, men, we've got to be guarding our hearts and our eyes. When we're like, God's called us to guard our hearts too. But if y'all are making it a whole lot easier because we're like, hey, we know what's coming when we get home. It's
Put
like,
some lipstick
hello,
on.
and so I think that's huge, just from a very basic thing that you
Love
could
that.
do for how can you keep the fire going.
Well, and I read a blog post one time, and one of my favorite bloggers wrote this blog post, and she said that she used to be not guilty, because it's not anything you should be ashamed of. Like, if you're putting on clothes every day, that you're putting on clothes every day. Like, give yourself a little pat on the back. Way to go, mama. But she said, she's like, one day I just realized it was just as easy for me to get up and put on a cute pair of skinny jeans and a flannel in the fall or whatever, as it was for me to put on, like a t-shirt and running shorts. Like, it was just as easy. I just had to put forth a little bit more effort to make sure I had like the good stuff in my closet, which is part of the reason that I started doing what I do, is because I wanted to help women get the good stuff in their closets, try to help you. Because what happens, like Matt was saying, you're very brave, by the way. Good job.
I did run it past her before I talked about it.
To say those words in a room full of women, you're a very brave man. You might have an egged car as you walk. I'm just
Yes, it's better me saying it to all of y'all than your husband saying it and then you egging his car.
That's
true.
Well, the funny thing is that he never said that to me, and he would have never said, I wish that you would just put on some makeup and do your hair. He never even probably noticed that much of a difference until I started doing it, until I started making it like something that I just did. It took me a couple minutes in the morning. I'm not like a beauty blogger. I don't go on and show makeup tutorials. I just do it as fast as I can and thank the good Lord Jesus for dry shampoo, because I really don't bathe. I just do dry shampoo in my hair. So he doesn't necessarily need to know that, but a little deodorant and some dry shampoo and some mascara will go a long way. But it's kind of little things like that too. And sometimes I think we need to remind ourselves that, like, I'm not just mom. I am still a woman, and you need to, in order to be able to be a woman for your man, like, you need to step out from the shadow of just, I am mommy, I am needed, I am a taxi driver and a counselor and a referee, and I'm in all these roles, but at the end of the day, like, you are still the core of who you are. And let me just be clear, how you look is not who you are, but it is still a reflection of who you are, and you cannot argue with the fact that you just feel better when you're taking care of yourself. Just little subtle things that you can do just make such a big difference. And I will say, just from the perspective of working, because this has just been probably within the last 3.5 years that I've been like a working mom, and all moms are working. Some of us are just working, doing different things, right?
Yeah.
But I was, my job is social media. So I have to be vigilant and so careful about boundaries within social media. And when I wake up in the morning, like there are a lot of people that are in my industry that they're like, I post at 8 o'clock every morning, and then I post at 9 o'clock every night. Like, some days I post at 8, some days I don't. Because for the most part, all morning, like, I'm with my babies. I'm getting them ready for school. We're getting out to school, whatever. Like, and so I have just come, and honestly, in the day and age that we live in, we should be so good at, because we have the ability to learn how to balance, like you guys were saying, learn how to balance, learn how to put it away, social media, because it's at our fingertips all the time. So really, we should be so good at learning to be balanced with this, learning to put our phones down. And one of the saddest things I've ever seen is when I go to a restaurant and there are families sitting at a restaurant, and it's sad when you see everybody on a device, but what really breaks my heart is when mom and dad are looking at phones and the kids are just looking around. Like, that's sacred time as a family to be together. And so I think as moms, like, we just kind of, when I pick up my phone sometimes, and I don't get to really pick up my phone and scroll, because when I pick up my phone, I'm working. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I rarely ever get to just, like, scroll Instagram to see what everybody's up to, because I'm, like, behind the scenes doing stuff, right? And so I think that we just have to be so careful. Sometimes I'll tell my girls, like, mommy's working right now, and mama has to work right now. And they need to understand that I have a job and that I work, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. They understand that. They could tell you what mommy does for a living. Mommy tries on clothes for a living. That's what they say to people. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. We'll just leave it. It's okay. It's a little hit to the ego, but that's okay. I don't need to have an ego.
And we've just had to really work on boundaries.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the biggest thing, is that regardless of what it is, having boundaries
And
in
knowing
all areas
when,
of your life.
you know, there's certain times a day that we put phones down, and we know, my girls know, just like you guys said, when we sit down at the dinner table, there are no phones at the dinner table.
Yeah.
There are no phones, you know, when we're sitting together playing as a family. Like, you just have to learn to have boundaries and be intentional with the time that you do have, because even if you only have a limited amount of time, if you're intentional with that little amount of time, then it doesn't really matter how much time you have, because you're just making the most out of the time that you have.
Amen.
And so I think that that's what's made boundaries and being really intentional with the time that you do have is what has made a huge
I love
difference
that.
for us.